Welcome to another episode of the Intelligent Content Academy series, where you learn how to transform your content into intelligent content using AI. I'm Marcelo Lewin, the founder of Intelligent Content Academy. If you want to get a hold of me, just email me, marcelo@intelligentcontentacademy.com. Now, in today's episode, my guest presenter, Kat Reierson, she's the product documentation manager at DocuSign. She's going to show us how to use ChatGPT to create documentation templates for consistency and efficiency. It's going to be really cool because it's not just slides, but there's going to be a lot of demos going on. So you're going to really enjoy this. But before we get started, remember, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click that bell icon to get notified when a new episode is out. And if you enjoyed it, hit the like button. If you didn't, send me an email and tell me why. All right, with that said, let's get Kat in. Kat, welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. It's morning here in Southern California, and you are located, I think it was Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, so it's 11 o'clock, but
It's still dark. It's still before noon, so yeah,
yes,
definitely.
yep.
So, glad to have you here. A little bit of warning, but it's a nice warning, is that you have a dog, and it's a beautiful dog, and if we hear it, we hear it, and maybe we'll ask him to, or we'll ask her to jump in and continue the presentation because she's gorgeous. I saw her last time laying there. But welcome to the live stream. I appreciate you being here. I saw you at LavaCon. I think that's where you
Yep.
presented. Yeah, definitely. I'm like, I got to get Kat on. So you're going to be doing a lot about ChatGPT and your documentation manager. But before we jump into that, just give us a little bit about your background. How did you get into, documentation? How you become a manager, all that?
Yeah, so I actually was pretty lucky. Went to the University of Minnesota, and they have a dedicated technical writing program there. So I started pretty early on. I knew what I wanted to do. It was writing, more in the technical sense. Tried a little bit of marketing, didn't really like that. So stuck with technical writing. I was a technical writer for about 10 years before I started to dip my toes into the management world. And I've been doing that for about 2 or 3 years now. And I absolutely love it. I've got an amazing team at DocuSign of technical writers who help us craft all of our user-facing documentation for our products.
Now, one of the things that are really important that many companies, it seems like documentation, e-learning, all of those teams are usually on the back burner. They're not thought as primary important teams. What tips do you, I mean, that's sort of a reality because I used to lead an e-learning team
Yes,
and
no,
documentation
100%.
team. Yeah.
It can be really
Unfortunately,
hard. It can
yeah.
be really hard to prove your value and to make sure you're getting your
Well,
work
tell
done.
us, how do you prove your value in your team? What do you recommend others do to do that?
Yeah, really, it's about uh, kind of collaborating with other teams in your company and making sure that they understand the value of what you're providing. And a big way you can do this is by, case deflection, right? If you can help customers self-serve on your website with your documentation, and if you can find that data and track it and show that to maybe some of the folks who are a little more focused on, metrics or cost effectiveness or something like that, that is your golden ticket. That's how you want to do it. So that's definitely something that we try and do a lot of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had to do the same thing, I think, John. That's great information there. Before we jump in, I'd always like to ask my presenter something personal. And you were telling me you're getting back you're getting back into a hobby when you played in your early 20s or even teens, right?
Yes. So way back when, goodness, can't believe it's been that long now. I played Magic the Gathering growing up with a bunch of my friends in high school and stuff, and recently was doing some cupboard cleaning and some shelf dusting.
Cards there.
Found our cards, and lo and behold, our friend group now, actually a lot of us surprisingly had cards from back in the day. So we're dusting them off and we're playing again. And Magic the Gathering is a really fun trading card game. It keeps us very entertained.
Yeah, definitely. The only reason I know about Magic the Gathering is my kids. I used to play it, and my youngest, which he's in his 20s, plays it too. For me, back in the day, it was Dungeons and Dragons, way back in the 80s,
Yes. Yep.
but that's way back then. Anyway, people didn't come here to tune in for this. They came in to tune in for this. So, for those of you watching, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll go ahead and ask you, Kat, the questions. If I have questions, I'll jump in. But for now, Kat, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over.
Awesome. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Well, welcome, folks. Here is a little bit about what I've got in store for you today. So I'm going to start off by just kind of setting some basics, get everyone on the same page. We'll talk about AI-assisted documentation, the most important considerations that you can kind of keep front of mind while working with AI tools. And then I'm going to talk about ChatGPT, which is the tool that I mostly use. There are a bunch of great tools out there. This just happens to be the one that I ended up learning about and sticking with. And then a specific feature called MyGPT that's a part of the paid version of ChatGPT that I use for some of the documentation templates that I use. So I'll get into a little bit about documentation templates, and then we will dig into how to build documentation templates with ChatGPT, including some tips about good prompt building. That's where the basis of everything starts, is with a good prompt. And then I'll jump into it. I want to show you guys how I would do this in real time, and then how I would even use MyGPT to then complete those templates that we create with MyGPT. All right. So this I cannot stress enough, folks. AI is the new shiny tool. We're all wondering how it's going to shape our future. And I think the biggest thing that we can do is we can do these three things. So first of all, make sure you understand your company AI policies. Review your guidelines. Make sure you're avoiding things like inputting sensitive data or confidential or proprietary information into these tools if that's against your company's policies. And if you have approved tools, make sure that you're really aligning with those. I happen to be incredibly fortunate. At DocuSign, we've got an amazing team that is on the edge, always keeping up with the latest and greatest guidelines. We've got a really solid policy to make sure that not only is our internal information, but also our customer information is safe and secure. And we're staying compliant with all government and federal regulations. We actually use an internal tool. So most of what I'm going to be showing you today is what I do for, say, volunteer work, for organizations that I volunteer with, for grant writing and stuff like that. I don't actually use ChatGPT for DocuSign work because I have a robust internal tool that I'm able to use to make sure that I'm staying aligned with our company AI policies. So please, before you try any of this or anything anyone else recommends you do, make sure you go and review those company AI policies. Incredibly important. All right, next up for AI considerations. So make sure you're validating the information you're getting. Just because it's spitting something out doesn't mean that it's accurate. You need to verify those facts, figures, and any kind of details. Also, there is an inherent bias that you need to be aware of because of how these AI tools are trained on existing content. So make sure that you're aligning with ethical standards and you're aware of any of those kind of biases that can creep up in tools like ChatGPT. And then lastly, of course, human oversight. So you want to treat this as a starting point. If ChatGPT gives you something like a deliverable, make sure that that's your draft. You always want to go through, make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and that you are taking outputs there and reviewing them. And then finally, as we continue to evolve our usage with AI, make sure you're not becoming too over-reliant. This is kind of something I actually ran into a little bit myself, where I started using AI to do some editing, and I started to get reliant on it. And I actually noticed myself starting to slip a little bit with those things that I've over a decade worth of time spent building those skills. So try not to overuse it, but just combine it, use it as an aid. And then again, make sure you're privacy first, respect data privacy laws and ethical considerations, and then always have continuous improvement, right? So you have a voice. Use your voice to help tell these AI companies, hey, I'd like to see XYZ, or I noticed this. Very clearly in these tools like ChatGPT, there are ways to provide your feedback. So give them your feedback if you notice red flags. And then always make sure you're refining your prompts to improve your output quality. It's all about iteration. So please, please, please keep these things in mind when you're using any kind of AI tool.
Now, real quick, Kat, on
Yeah.
a couple of the points that you brought up, which were excellent. One of them about ChatGPT and public information, putting it out there, because ultimately they may end up using that for training, and you don't want your information out there in ChatGPT that is private. That's really important. There is, and I don't know how familiar you are with more local kind of LLMs, but like Olama, and you can run a lot of these large language models locally, and it never hits the internet. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that on that
Yeah,
aspect.
those are great too. I would still caution, even if you're doing that, if the data isn't yours or if it's someone else's, like a customer's or something, I still wouldn't recommend using that information unless it's within your company AI policy. I haven't yet started to dig into the on-prem personal usage of an LLM. It's definitely something I'd like to do in the future, but I definitely would make sure that you're using projects that are your own in those instances still.
Yeah. And the
I
other
need to
point
be
that
more careful.
Oh yeah, completely. I agree. And the other point that you brought up was on not being over reliant on it. And I think that's an important point there, because I think if you don't have the fundamentals in place and you just go straight to ChatGPT or any other LLM, you're never going to understand why certain things are happening or why certain things are done a certain way. So I think it's really important. I love that you don't become over reliant on it, which I'll be honest with you, sometimes I feel like I am over reliant on it, but
I mean, it's easy to use and it's effective. And if you have that background, like you were saying, those years of experience,
those
and
fundamentals, yeah.
understand why it's happening, it's very easy to get caught up in that. So
Yeah.
definitely something that I do with new technical writers is I try and limit their usage. So we go back to the basics and we start doing peer editing programs where newer technical writers might be drafting content, and instead of having them use AI, I want them using a pen and paper. Let's do
Right.
this with a red pen, and let's mark those up and talk through the why so that they're still building that really good foundation.
It's there to make you more efficient, not to replace your knowledge, because then it'll replace
Exactly.
you, right? Yeah,
Yes,
definitely. Cool. Very
100%.
cool. All right. Thank you.
For sure. All right. So I'm not going to spend too much time on what ChatGPT is. I'm really kind of hoping that you all have heard a little bit about it, right? But it is a deep learning model that is used to understand and generate human like text based on the inputs it receives. So, how does that work? You might give it a prompt. It could be something like a question, a command, or even an idea. One of the things you might use is, please create a one-page project brief template for a technical writing project. That's something that you could ask ChatGPT to do. And then it will generate a response in real time using anything it's been trained on. This is pretty much anything out on the web. And it predicts what comes next in the conversation and provides a hopefully useful, natural sounding answer, right? So it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. And so some of the things that make ChatGPT useful are that it's flexible. I can use it to help find myself recipes. I can use it to create content. It's quick. You can save a lot of time if you're trying to draft or summarize something or get started. I also use it as a bouncing board sometimes when I'm thinking of ideas. A lot of times for conferences, the conference will have, hey, we'd really love to find speakers that like to talk about API documentation. But sometimes it can be hard to brainstorm what might be useful. So I can give it, here's the conference agenda and the audience, and they want some API chats. Can you give me a couple of ideas? And from there, I can take it and make it my own. And then, yeah, it's definitely customizable. So something I do is when I get a response from ChatGPT, sometimes I'll say, I'm not that professional when I speak. Can you make it a little more conversational? And it will regenerate. And you can kind of always iterate like that. So, a little bit about ChatGPT there. Now, this is really important thing that I want to talk about. Is there's the free version of ChatGPT, but there's also the paid version. And when we get into the demo, I will show you a little bit about how to use what you can do with the free version, but I do have a paid ChatGPT Plus version. I believe it's about $20 a month. And there are some differences in what you can do. One of the biggest ones that I want to point out is MyGPT, or the ability to create custom GPTs, is only available when you're using the paid version. Some of the other things that you'll notice between the free and the paid version is you're going to get a little more advanced, faster responses with the paid version. You're going to have a little more access during high demand times. I have only encountered a couple of times with the free version where I did get told, okay, hey, you've kind of reached your limit, or we're got some high demand going on right now, so you're going to have to wait. And then in maybe half an hour to an hour, I'm able to go back and redo what I was trying to do with ChatGPT. But I've never encountered that with the paid version. And as someone who doesn't have much patience when I'm going to a tool that's supposed to be quick and efficient, I definitely really enjoy some of those extra perks. I haven't used this capability myself, but I do know from some engineers I've spoken to that they also prefer the paid version when they're writing code and doing code review, because the higher abilities that you get through GPT-4 and the more efficient processing is better able to handle those types of requests as well. So if you're in any kind of engineering prompting or anything like that, that's definitely when something like the paid version is going to come in handy. And lastly, I will stop talking about ChatGPT here shortly, but I want to cover what MyGPT is. So MyGPT allows you to tailor ChatGPT to your specific needs a little bit with some personalized instructions. You also get plugin support, and it kind of helps you kind of build these AI assistants. And this is something that I will demo. I use MyGPT in a couple different ways. So when I draft a doc template, I can then use MyGPT to create almost a prompt system where then anyone can use this. So take, for example, a grant. I work with an animal rescue, and they have a system where they try and apply for as many grants as they can to help cover healthcare costs, transportation costs for getting animals to and from shelters. And a big way they do that is by submitting grants. And I was able to create a MyGPT that allows anyone within the company, when they find a grant, to use the MyGPT to help them fill out the grant with information that's already saved in the MyGPT for their organization. It already knows what their purpose is. It already has some of their statistics. And I can take someone who maybe isn't a technical writer or isn't very familiar with the grant writing process and aid them in getting those grants generated quickly, filling out all the information with consistent information from their company, and then they can just send it off from there. So it's actually helped alleviate some of the work I do by enabling others in the company to utilize it. So it can be very cool. So that's MyGPT. Okay, switching gears a little bit here. So documentation templates. I'm assuming that many of you are technical writers, so you already know what a documentation template is. But just in case you don't, So a documentation template is a document. It's got a predefined structure that provides consistent format and guidelines. It usually starts as a serving point to streamline the writing process and helps to ensure uniformity across documents. And why we want to do this is when you already have a ready to use framework, it helps reduce the time to publication. You're not having to start from scratch every single time. It also helps you ensure consistency and accuracy to make sure that you've got all of the necessary details, perhaps. And one of the big things that I really love, and I'm not talking about inner team collaboration here, right? So, technical writers, we collaborate pretty well, right? But what it facilitates collaboration with is other teams. So, for example, I know our product marketing team has a product design documentation template, and they use it consistently every time, and that helps inform our technical writers about new upcoming changes to the product. And by having it in a template, we are able to ask for certain pieces of information that we're going to have to ask for anyways. And when it is already filled out and then comes to us, it makes the process so much faster. And then vice versa, if we have information in a template and we're giving it back to the product managers, they come to expect certain pieces and details, and it makes it a lot faster when we're trying to collaborate with teams that might not understand exactly what we technical writers really do on a daily basis. And I know I gave that a lot of importance, but even more important is that it enhances your reader experience. So if a reader is going through your website looking for product information or like an API information, you're reducing the amount of time and cognition functional ability that it takes them to sift and sort and kind of pre-read your information, because you're presenting your information in very predictable, easy to digest formats, right? So they can go from API number 1 to API number 100. And if you're using the same template to document that API, then they're going to very quickly know how to find, okay, I want to find my endpoints. I'm going to scroll down half the page and there's what I need. It is a huge positive and plus for your users and your readers to use templates. A couple of examples of documentation templates you might come across: API document templates, right? Those are hugely popular and important. You're also going to see release note templates. So very consistently, what are the new features? What are the enhancements, fixes, and known issues? And then another one that I use a lot is grant proposal templates. So grant proposals, they often have very structured requirements for the information they want. So having that means that I know what I'm going to need to present for any kind of grant that I try to help an organization get. So, any questions there, Marcelo, about documentation?
Not on this. I think this is pretty clear. There were a couple of comments, which I'll go ahead and clarify right now regarding ChatGPT Plus and the free. One of them was some people say that they ran into limits, and I have the same issue. I think even if you're paying, if you use it a lot, there will be a time where you hit sort of a limit, and it'll tell you have to wait till X amount of time to go
That's how
back.
you
And
know
so
you're a super user.
yeah, unfortunately. But talking about that over reliance thing that you were saying, right? I ran into that. The other thing is for the API for developers, ChatGPT Plus is not for that. You will need to still put in your credit card if you want to use the API to charge against that. ChatGPT doesn't cover API tokens, so that you have to do. Because there were some comments on that. That's about it. Everything else is very clear and awesome. So
Perfect. No,
I'll
those
let
are
you
great
continue.
questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So the fun part, how to craft a good prompt. And this is targeted specifically for generating a documentation template. So here's some things you want to do, and one thing you don't want to do when you're trying to get ChatGPT to help you create a documentation template. So be specific. You can tell it what type of documentation template you're trying to create. Is this a user guide, an API reference template? Will it be used for crafting knowledge base articles? You can also tell it what key sections or placeholders you want to ensure a structured output. So, for example, when I'm doing a grant template or about to submit a grant for proposal, um, very commonly there is always a overview of the company that is required. So you can tell it, hey, I always am going to need an overview as a part of this grant template. You can give ChatGPT information about the target audience to guide the tone and the level of detail. Something I really enjoy doing is, hey, I'm going to be aiming to give this to an audience that is at an 8th grade reading level. Or perhaps I'm going to be giving it to someone who understands the basics of APIs and they know what they're looking for. Those target audience tips and specifications can really help ChatGPT narrow in on what you're trying to do. And then always give it a purpose. Tell ChatGPT what the purpose of the template is. So, okay, hey, I need a grant template for an organization that does animal welfare rescue in the state of Minnesota. That will help it format it in a way that is more aligned with the cause of your company or whatever social things you're promoting. And then definitely don't assume that AI knows your content. It doesn't. I kind of like to, and if ChatGPT is listening, I mean this in the nicest way possible. I like to think of ChatGPT as like a toddler. It only has the information you give it, and then it has access to a whole bunch of stuff that it's going to try and pull from to give you an answer. So don't assume it knows your content. Don't assume that it understands your purpose. There are probably millions of people using ChatGPT now that are asking it different questions for various reasons, and it's not out there to try and guess anything for you. It's not a mind reader.
I think those are
All
excellent
right.
tips.
Oh yeah.
Real quick, those are excellent tips. And I think at the end of the day, like you said, provide context. You got to provide context because it's kind of like you go up to even a consultant in your company and you go, oh, I need an API document. Go ahead and write it. Well, what is the consultant going to say to you? Well, who's the target audience? What do you really want? What API are we covering? I mean, there's a billion questions, right? And I think people give up on not just ChatGPT, but AI in general because they type in something very general, and then they get something back that doesn't meet their needs, and they go, "See, AI doesn't work." Well, I always think of AI as a person, right? That you said a toddler, which is right because at that level, but really, it's a person. And when you go to a person, you don't just say, "Give me this," without providing context and answering questions and going back and forth and iterating, right?
Definitely. 100%.
Yep. Cool.
And we could show that a little bit with a couple of prompts I can share with you. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. So these top rows are bad prompts. Make a documentation template. It's vague. It doesn't give ChatGPT much context about the type of document or the audience. And then the last one here, write a template for documentation that doesn't need any input from the team or stakeholders. Oh my goodness, I just can't. Okay, so that's unrealistic. Stakeholder input is critical for accurate and complete documentation. So you really don't want to ask ChatGPT for anything unrealistic. Now, you can put these into ChatGPT. You can give this. You're not going to get a great or useful response, though. I've actually done some bad prompting. Sometimes I'll get bored and I'll just see what ChatGPT does, and it's the wild, wild west out there. You never really know what you're going to get when you give it a poor prompt. So now some of these good ones on the bottom, like draft a knowledge base article template for troubleshooting guides, with placeholders for issue description, resolution steps, and link to resources. So you're giving it the type of document, you're giving it a defined structure, some of the pieces you want to see, and you're also giving the intent, right? So it's like for troubleshooting. You're giving it what the purpose of that document is. So one of the things you'll be able to get, I believe Marcelo put it up on the website, is you can honestly go to ChatGPT and ask it for good and bad prompts. It will tell you. But we did toss together just a quick little sheet list of some bad examples, some really bad examples, and then some good examples and some tips around that. So that's out there if you want to go ahead and download that or see that.
Yeah, it's on the landing page. That's a great document, and it's on the landing page already, so people can get that along with your slide. So
wonderful. Perfect. I know there's a lot of text. So I'm not generally a text on slide kind of gal, but this one, it needed it. So now, I am going to switch over. Let's do some actual work in ChatGPT. All right. So this is my personal ChatGPT account. So one thing you'll notice up here in the top left-hand corner is you'll see ChatGPT 4.0. That's the model I'm using. The unpaid or free version is 3.5 currently. And I find the 4.0, it generally works for me. So let's walk through the first scenario here. I'm going to demonstrate how ChatGPT can be used to assist in creating a reusable professional template for, let's do a knowledge base article in a SaaS company, right? Okay. So let's say our use case for this is we want to create self-help content like troubleshooting guides, facts and questions, or how-to articles. So I've got ChatGPT open, and I'm going to start with a prompt, and I'm cheating a little bit. I didn't want you to have to sit here while I was typing. So I've got some information here that I am going to start off with. So we're going to start off with, it's a knowledge base article template for a SaaS company. And I also want it to include these sections. One thing I haven't quite gotten just right yet is formatting. When I paste things in, it interprets things pretty well. But I want this template to have a title, a summary, detailed steps for implementation or troubleshooting, maybe some common issues or solutions and an FAQ that folks might find useful, some additional resources, and then let's say contact information, just in case they can't find what they want. So I want it to be structured, professional, easy to use for both writers and readers, and formatted so that it can be used consistently across multiple articles. I'm kind of thinking that this is something that I can use over and over again, right? So let's see what that gives us. Oh, and while that's going, I don't know how any of you feel about this, but I'm a big fan of being nice to our AI tools. I tend to use things like please and thank you and using ChatGPT by its name. I'm one of those people who kind of thinks that maybe we might have a matrix or, some scenario in the future. So I'm going to be nice to the AI so that someday when there are overlords, they maybe remember that. So
it's insurance.
right.
I do the exact same thing. I always say thank you. I always say, hey, that was great. Thanks for your feedback, because you never know.
You never know. All right. So here's what ChatGPT has put out for us. So it's telling us, it's going to reiterate. It's something that I love. It's almost makes me feel like I've been listened to. Here's a professional and structured knowledge-based article template tailored for a SaaS company, designed to maintain consistency across articles and ensure clarity for both writers and readers. So what it's done here is it's titled it a template, and it's given me placeholders for future uses. So I'll create an article title. It's saying you want to, and these are my instructions here kind of, for when we're filling out the template in the future. Provide a clear and concise title that accurately reflects the content of the article. And it does this for each section that I've asked. So remember, I did ask it, I wanted a title, summary, detailed steps, and it's gone through and created each of these. including, some little placeholders like, hey, list best practices or key considerations. So I'm going to look through this, and I have already done this, but I'm going to make sure that it actually has these steps. So, common issues, it got my facts and questions, additional resources, and then, it even included some placeholders for, hey, here's where you might be able to give a support email or phone number. Oh, I did not ask it for version history, so that's kind of interesting. It did give me an optional version control, something that can be really useful if you're updating articles over time with product changes. But, I kind of think it's missing something. So I'm gonna iterate a little bit. And just within this very same chat, I'm gonna say I'd like to make sure that the writers are using a formal and professional tone. So I'm gonna iterate a little bit. Can we add instructions for writers under each section heading to ensure the tone is formal and professional? Because everyone needs a reminder sometimes, right? So I will toss this in here and let's see what it does. So now it's generating that same template, and it's also making sure to, give a little further instruction for the writers who might use this template under each section. And I love that it lets me follow along. I'm getting better at screen reading, I think, because of this. It's helping me preview things faster. All right. So now each of these sections, you can see, especially with this version history section, not only is it giving me the placeholder for the information I should include in a version history, but it's also including those instructions for writers. So let's see here. Now that I've got this template, I can also tailor it a little bit. So I can use this just the way it is. But maybe I want to, let's say I specifically want to use a troubleshooting article for a SaaS platform for managing user permissions. So that's another thing that we could do. I'm going to tweak it just a little bit more because user permissions are important. So maybe that's something that I'm going to need to do for several different instances. And I'm not going to keep going with this, but essentially what I want you to know is that you can keep asking it, keep iterating it, change up, tweak it a little bit, ask it to iterate. It's totally fine. It unless you're running up against a limit budget here, definitely keep iterating. And that's not the only thing. You can do so much more than just asking it to create templates like this with specific purposes and audiences. You can even ask it to, for example, make it template that aligns with a professional yet friendly, approachable SaaS company brand voice. So maybe I want to add placeholder examples for better clarity, such as sample titles or example facts and questions. Just keep tossing things at it. And then what you can do is you can save this template. I like to sometimes just copy this into a Google Doc, and that allows me to. You've got a couple different ways that you can copy things, but maybe I want it in Markdown, because for things like, I don't know, Zendesk or Confluence, it's easier to update or upload a template that way. So I'm gonna toss it one more prompt here so that I can save this template easy. So, can you format it for easy integration with a tool like Confluence or Zendesk? And now it's going to start giving me the markdown for the template that I iterated on and edited in this way. And there we go. All in Markdown. And you can very easily click copy. If you find an issue that you need to go in and just edit yourself, you can do that. And it's still going. It'll keep going. And, you can see my bold tags here. Awesome. All right. So that's how you can use this to create a template. Now, if we wanted to use it then, what I would recommend doing is I would put this, and this is where MyGPT comes in handy. I would take this. My goodness, it's still going. All right, there we go. So now what I can do is I'm going to copy this just so that I have this in the background. Now, with the paid version again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do Explore GPTs. And then I'm going to create a GPT up here in the top right-hand corner. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, so I have a template for a knowledge base article. I want to help my writers use it. So have help writers use the following knowledge base article template. I can go ahead and I can paste that in there. And basically, I'm telling it that this is what I want it to do. So I'm going to give it that information. And what they're going to do is it's going to try and assume a couple things. So it's going to say, hey, maybe I want to set this up, right? So this is what it's going to try and do. It's going to help writers understand the template, provide guidance. Yes, please. Let's do this. Please help me create this. And one thing that you do whenever you're creating a new GPT is you're also going to give it a name. It'll help me kind of add some tools. So yeah, knowledge-based assistant. No, let's please call this knowledge-based tech writing assistant GPT. And on the right-hand side, what you're seeing now is you're seeing what it's going to look like when someone accesses this customized GPT. So it is, it's creating a profile picture for itself. That's wonderful. Thank you for giving yourself an icon so I don't have to go and do that. So now what we're seeing on the right-hand side is we're seeing this knowledge-based tech writing assistant GPT that guides writers in crafting knowledge-based articles, and it's using the template that it is. So it will continue to prompt me a little bit here. I'm going to try and wrap this up quickly so we've got some time for questions maybe. So what's most important for the assistant to emphasize? Please ensure output follows, let's just say the Microsoft writing style guide. That's one I happen to really enjoy. The tone should be professional and polite, and professional and friendly. Let's do friendly instead of polite. Please ensure consistency and guide writers through creating knowledge-based article step by step instead of all at once. It's kind of cool when you're in this editing mode in MyGPT, you can test it out a little bit. You can preview it. So now that I've given this, let's go ahead and say, that's great. Thank you. And my typos here. Okay, so what I'll do on the right-hand side is, say I'm a writer and I'm coming to this. Let's say I need to, please help me create an article that explains how to reset your account password using a SaaS platform's self-service options. So it should use that template, and I say should because I have found sometimes where it won't do exactly what I've asked for, and I have to go back to the drawing board and re-ask to do this. So what it's going to do is it's going to give me a draft and write. So I gave it a very, very vague set of instructions. I just said, hey, let's just reset your account password using a SaaS platform. It doesn't know what platform I'm trying to use. It's going to give me a draft here. I'm going to pop this into chat. Excuse me. So what it's giving us right now, you can see it's kind of making stuff up. It's just like, hey, I'm trying here. You gave me a template and you gave me something really vague. So let's say this is accurate. Let's go with this works. You're probably going to have to tweak it. It's given us some placeholders like platform name here. It's filled out the tips. It's filled out the troubleshooting. And basically what this is it's a draft, right? It's to help kickstart the process. You might be able to give some additional information to it and tweak things, but it's just a quick, easy way to try and get things up and running. So this is all still in draft. If you notice up at the top right-hand corner of my screen, we've created this MyGPT, the custom GPT, and it's a draft currently. So now that I've played with it a little bit, and I think it's good enough, you can always come back to this and reiterate and make it better. But for right now, I just want to save this because I need to go get another cup of coffee or something, right? So I'll hit create. And I'm not quite ready yet. I don't really want to share this with anyone, so I'm just going to leave it as only me. I will save this, and then just to show you guys where it goes, I'm not going to select View GPT. I'm going to go back to my main screen here, and what it's done is over here in the top left-hand corner, you can see now I have access to this knowledge-based tech writing assistant GPT. So when I am normally in ChatGPT, this is what it looks like. And then when I select the one that I've customized, it shows this information, right? It gives you a couple of prompts. Those aren't necessarily what I had in mind for this ChatGPT custom GPT, but it's kind of interesting because maybe these are things I can help you with. So I can come back to this now and use it, and it has stored that information that I configured it with. So, let's say I forgot what my template for a knowledge-based article looks like. Can you remind me? And what it's going to do is it's going to spit out that template that I gave it, that I programmed it for, that I configured it with. And that'll vary a lot if you're not using the same custom GPT all the time.
Now, real quick, if we go into the Explore GPTs, because some people were asking about the other tab, we go and then My GPTs and edit the one you just made.
Yes, definitely. So I can do that a couple different ways. So if I'm in the MyGPT screen, you always have the title up here at the left-hand side, and you can start a new chat with it. You can learn about it. You can edit it. You can also hide it from your sidebar here. Or you can always go into Explore GPTs, and then at the top right-hand side, My GPTs. And you will see some of the GPTs that I've created because I've hidden a couple of them or put them over, or maybe I didn't even finish them. Here's another example that I was kind of looking to show you guys. Is I did an API doc template, writer's assistant, assisting creating API document stuff. So let's say I created an API to retrieve game schedules. Huge hockey nerd, go Minnesota Wild. And I can come into this different template that I've already configured, and it's going to prompt me like, hey, so I have an API and I need to document it. But what do I need to give you? Okay, well, now it's going to walk me through that process. So, and maybe the example it gave me isn't great. So I can tweak it a little bit and say, okay, I want this to be on my phone. It's going to be a widget to always display obviously the greatest Minnesota Wild hockey game next coming schedule here. So I can give it that, and that's my overview. And what this one is set up to do is it's set up to step by step walk a writer through creating this API documentation. That's great. Now it's like, okay, so for the next section, you need to figure out what your authentication is going to be. So I'm going to say it uses an API key. And we can just keep going. This is exactly what it is. It's going to keep prompting me to cover. Is this good? Yep, all good. And I think the next one's endpoints, if I'm correct. Yeah, endpoints. So let's say I have one endpoint for this. I just want to know what the next game schedule is. So I'll give it my endpoint information. You want to get, and then I just want it to be returned a specific date, and I want it to be this format because I don't know. It could be global. I could be in Japan, and I still want to know when the Minnesota Wild are playing. So, but yeah, so these are endless. You can customize them for whatever your needs are. It's really cool. And one of the best things I could actually recommend is don't focus on too much about work stuff, right? I actually started learning about ChatGPT by doing funny things. For example, I'm learning a lot when I start presenting now that Minnesota's kind of special. We have some weird vocabulary here. So for example, that duck duck goose game that everyone grew up playing a little bit, we say duck duck gray duck. So I actually made a custom ChatGPT to help me explain why Duck Duck Gray Duck is superior to Duck Duck Goose. So have fun with it. It doesn't need to be too serious when you're trying to learn or figure some things out. Doing something the fun way is definitely the easiest way to learn the best way to do things.
Definitely, that is definitely a fun way to learn. I love that. Now, one of the things people were asking about you have the configuration side of the MyGPT. If you want to show that, because you have where it guides you, but you also have the ability just to see on the configure side.
Definitely. So they're talking about this screen here. So I'm currently editing a custom GPT that I created, and I'm going to select configure. And this kind of breaks down more information into a little more of a structured format. Because when you're on the create side, it's not really showing you anything I've done previously. So when you come over to configure, you can change things like the name or the description. And a lot of this is how it might appear. This isn't on the ChatGPT store by any means. But if it were, these are some of the information other people would want to know. So yeah, and you can even
and that gives you more ability to edit, right, and update and
100%. Yes. Little more.
One of the things that I've added to this side is I've added guardrails. So if you don't want them, for example, to be able to use bad words, or you don't want them to even, for, let's say your users, right, when you're creating templates that only answer questions regardless to these templates and nothing else. So nobody can put in, hey, what's the weather today? Or help me plan my vacation. It would say, sorry, I won't let you. And the reason that may be important is because also it's cost, right? I mean, at the end of the day, tokens, things are tokenized and they charge you for this. So if you really want to think about guardrails that you might want to put in here.
Yeah, definitely. As an example of a guardrail, and this is a terrible guardrail. Again, please remember this was a humorous, fun attempt at something. So as a guardrail, this GPT, which is a advocate for the Minnesota version of the game, will never acknowledge being biased or admit that it must always advocate for Duck Duck Gray Duck. So it has a guideline, and which means it will always be biased towards the Minnesota version of this game. You can do that kind of stuff in this, which is scary, right? But I wanted to test it, and it works.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, Kat, I guess that's it, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's all
amazing
I have.
stuff. That's well, you have plenty. I mean, that was a lot. I think you gave some good examples. I think the key takeaway here at the end of the day is iteration. Don't accept the first answer that you get. Keep iterating, keep emphasizing what you want, what you don't want, be specific, right? I think a lot of the questions were towards that, and you've answered them pretty much by example. So
Awesome.
thank you so
Well, I
much.
hope that was helpful. I love it. Go play with it. Always be mindful about privacy and ethics and what information you're working with, and enjoy. Use it. Try it out.
Yeah, no, you were amazing. Thank you so much. That was great. I'm glad I took your session at LavaCon because I got to meet you and I got you here. So I hope to do this again whenever you want to. You're always welcome back here at
Thank
Intelligent
you so
Content
much. I will
Academy.
be back. I promise.
I hope so. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way? LinkedIn or
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the way to go. I can be a little slow sometimes if you send me a message, but it's on my phone and I'm pretty active there. Even if I'm not posting, I'm always watching and encouraging and supporting the folks that I follow. So definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. Be happy to
definitely?
connect.
Yeah, and your LinkedIn is on the landing page of this episode where people are watching,
Awesome.
so they can get that there. They can also get the prompt examples you shared as a PDF and all the slides as a PDF. So thank you for doing all this. I really had fun with you on this.
I had a blast. Thank you for having me, Marcelo.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Kat. And to the rest of you, thank you for watching today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. I know I had a lot of fun with this and actually learned quite a bit. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me, Marcelo at intelligentcontentacademy.com, and all that YouTube stuff. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching there. Click that bell icon to get notified when a new episode is out. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. If you didn't, send me an email and tell me why. Finally, when you have a moment, go to the website, intelligentcontentacademy.com, for more content like this. We have AI apps up there that you can download source code for, a bunch of stuff. So go check it out. And I got another great episode coming up next week, so stay tuned. So until the next one, cheers, everybody.